Pahalo Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai Shema Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to all the Akim, bishops, elders, pushing the gospel out in truth and sincerity. I'm going to continue with this reading of Vultures in Eagle's Clothing. And let's get straight into it. Old canons of anti-Semitism, such as the claim that Jews, bankers, financiers, and internationalists are working in secret to control the course of political events. I mean, this is written back in 2005, so it's much less a conspiracy than a truth now, here in 2022. But I digress. Another example of the link between legal populism and conspiracy theory is the idea popular within legal populism that we in the United States are living under a false legal system identified variously as law merchant, equity, or maritime law, and that a conspiracy exists to perpetuate this false legal system as a way of tricking Americans out of their true rights. The ultimate roots of this conspiracy are disputed. One website, for instance, locates the beginning of the supplanting of the common law by admiralty law in the doings of the George Rapp Harmony Society, a 19th century utopian community founded by one George Rapp in 1805, as the website declares. Admiralty law. Let me look back at this. I've not come across that term, admiralty law. Let's look at the definition of that. Admiralty law. Admiralty law or maritime law is a body of law that governs nautical issues and private maritime disputes. What's nautical? Let's look at that. Nautical, of or concerning navigation, sailors, or the sea, maritime nautical charts, right? So admiralty law, or maritime law is a body of law that governs issues of the sea and private issues of the sea. So admiralty law consists of both domestic law on history. So basically, it's a law of the sea, right? The law that they've created of the sea, right? So, as the website declares, evidence will show that the tremendous wealth accumulated by this society was subsequently used to fashion a George Rapp society on a much larger scale, with plans to ultimately encompass the world in a superstate controlled and governed by mercantile interests under the law of admiralty law. A superstate wherein all the property in the world and all the people on spaceship Earth are pledged to the benefit of this worldwide mercantile association, the New World Order. Well, I mean, the narrator writes this almost as if it's like a tongue-in-cheek, or it's like some loose conspiracy. But this is what he's writing is exactly what is going on. These higher powers, people call them by many different labels, whether it be Illuminati or elites or bankers or whatever you want to call them. Yes, they are the founders of the Federal Reserve Bank, and they are the ones that have, yes, put people into countries into debt, even one of the biggest military countries in the world, America, into severe debt, while they themselves get richer. Just over these past 2 years, with this whole carry on with the what everyone knows what's been going on over the last 2 years. The amount of wealth that they have accumulated has allowed them to be even more erroneous with their um, unlawful decrees. So they're not really losing money if they. All right, let's say, all right, here in the UK, electricity due to be increased by 30 to 40% in the coming months, which alone 2 years ago would have seen vast protests, but because people are so consumed with other matters, um, because people are getting the arrows shot at them by all angles, they don't even have the time to comprehend how significant that is. But the amount of wealth that these rich families have accumulated over the past 2 years has allowed them to that has emboldened them to make such vast decrees as um, you know electricity to be increased 30 to 40% in the coming months, which could also just be foreshadowing because, as you know, a lot of electricity comes out of Russia, with the Nord Stream. So that could just be these people want to go to war with Russia in a way to upset prophecy, because, as you know, all these bankers and all these higher powers, whether they know it or not, the higher powers below the bankers, whether they know it or not, they are tools. They are tools which the bankers are using. And one of the reasons they are using them is to upset prophecy. The bankers and the elites and whatever you want to call them, Illuminati, illuminated ones, the the whole thousand points of light guys, they are well aware that of the goings on of the Bible and the prophecies in the Bible. One of the last one of the last few prophecies of the Bible are the mark of the beast, which is a chip which is to be inserted into the hand or the shoulder or whatever part of your body that sees fit, thus allowing you to buy and sell with that chip rather than using cash or even a debit card. So in a way, doing away totally of the dollar or the pound or the franc or whatever you euro. Um, that is one of the last few prophecies, and that prophecy is to be implemented before World War III. So if they can, and that is strict as well. That prophecy is to be implemented before World War III, before the the arrows are shot from one end of the earth to the other. Their way of thinking is that if they can, in a way, take out Russia, who are Magog in the Bible, if they can take out Russia, then how can that prophecy be fulfilled? So that is what you're seeing now. They're trying to, in a way, upset prophecy so that if they take out one of the major components of the Bible, as you know, the Bible speaks of putting the hooks back in the jaw of Magog and turning them back. Magog plays a major role in prophecy. So their thought is that if they can somehow upset that prophecy, then they can maybe get their birthright back, or or something like that. Maybe find favor, or maybe just live out, just roll into the sunset. But as we all know, The Lord is the Most High Yahweh is the ultimate chess player. So this, he just laughs at this. This is not, this is not that's not gonna work. That's not playing chess. That's not playing chess. And even if they were playing chess, it's like this. There's a million moves on a chessboard that can be played, and the Lord, like we say, is the master chess player. Like if people really just um, people that aren't of the spirit, they can't recognize. They don't really recognize who they are, and they don't really recognize where they are. Like they wanna go exploring here and increasing knowledge there and go into flying into space, and like you're already in space. Where do you think you are? Where do you what do you think this is? Like you're already in space. You're already on a planet in space. Where are you going? But as you know, the scriptures say that he's never satisfied. He's very covetous, always wanting more. In fact, let me get that scripture. Um, so that's Proverbs 27:20. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. Let me get another one. That's a good one, but that's not the actual one that I was going for. So let's see if I can get it this time. This is not the one, but I'll read this anyway. Ecclesiastes 5:10. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity. So he that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. So he that loves abundance will not be satisfied with increase. And you see that with all these organizations. Sorry, I'm going off. I digress. It's just the spirit. I'm just going on the spirit. I'm reading this book, and if something comes to me in the spirit, then I'll talk on it. But I'll get back to the book. But as I was saying, that the scripture says, "Nor he that loveth abundance be satisfied with increase." And you see that with these companies, whether it be Starbucks or McDonald's or Macy's or whatever company you think of, these Apple companies and Microsoft, their whole goal, whether they make, if they make a profit, if they make a profit 1 year of, let's say, 3% or 4%, which is great. No, they want to beat that the next year. If they the next year get 4% profit, or let's say 3% profit, so there's a 1% decrease, that's a big thing to them. They want more. It's all about more, 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 more. Increase, increase, increase. Covetous, covetous. Esau is very covetous. Let's look at the word covetous. Covetous, having or showing a great desire to possess something belonging to someone else. She fingered the linen with covetous hands. She fingered the linen with covetous hands. So she ran. The description of covetous in that sentence is talking of a woman running her hands across fine linen in a way of lust, a way of wanting. So yeah, covetous is a desire to possess something belonging to someone else. A great desire, not just a desire, a great desire. So a great desire will drive you to do things such as, enter territories which aren't your own, to obtain those resources or materials. And this is what we're seeing. This is what we're seeing. This is what has happened over the past 2 years in such a way that the amount of wealth that was amassed over the past 2 years has allowed them now to basically enslave. It's almost completely destroyed the middle class, and also allowed them. It's emboldened, and also given them license to make even more erroneous decrees than they were doing before. Because now that it doesn't really matter if people refuse to work or whatever have you. Um, they have infrastructure in place, whereas those people won't be missed if they decide not to work, or they won't lose as much money, um, because they've already amassed a great amount of money. So now we're in a phase where there's going to be a lot of poking, a lot of testing, a lot of, because they've got the money to do it. You know, as an entrepreneur, let's say you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to come up with, you know, the next best thing, right? You've got all the time in the world. You're trying to come up with the next best thing, and you've got the resources to do it. You know, you're going to try this, you're going to try that. You know, Omicron. It's just, you know, it's whatever have you. Let's, hike up the prices here, and like, let's go over there, hike up the prices over there. It's a constant barrage. So not only does it deplete the energy of the people that don't know what's going on, because they're just a straw in the wind being tossed to and fro. Not only does it deplete their energy, it also allows for other things to be doing on the side. So you could be pulling the people over here, uh, and doing something else with your right hand. So they're looking at your left hand, you're doing something with your right hand. They run to your right hand, you're doing something with your left hand. And oh yeah, don't forget your toes are moving as well. There it's a constant barrage. It's a spiritual war. It's a real spiritual war. It's a real war for the soul, and it's you know it's a kind of mentality where it's like, look, what did the Georgia Guidestones say? The Georgia Guidestones say maintain humanity under 500 million, right? So what is the population of the world? What, like 8 billion or something? Let's look at that. In fact, I'm not even going to type it in. Esau likes to do all that counting of people, even though the Bible says you're not supposed to count the people. But he's broken every law, so why not that one? So if the population of the world is, say, at 8 billion, let's say 8 billion loosely, that's looking at a decrease of 7.5 billion people, which is a lot of death. And they're willing to do it. They're willing to do it. And the Lord is willing to do it in such a way, as you see in the prophecies. World War III is due to happen, but in its due season, not when man says so. So there are a few prophecies to be fulfilled yet, um, and it's not going to be on man's time. So as much as Esau wants to upset prophecy by getting rid of Russia, or somehow trying, I mean, because what this whole Ukraine thing is, that it gives the US a chance to see the battle tactics of Russia, and all of this, and how they interact with certain situations, and it gives them a chance to play the puppeteer, and they love to play the puppeteer, so it gives them a chance to do that. They can look back and kind of watch NATO do this. I mean, all America really is going to do in this skirmish, which is all it's going to amount to. As we say, the mark of the beast has to be put in place before the missiles are shot. So all this skirmish is going to allow is for America to, the way America see it, it's just going to allow them to assess Russia. That's it. They're not gonna put boots on the ground, or they might throw a few drones in there. They might do that. Uh, they will obviously provide Ukraine with equipment and gear, but they're not going to really get into it. Um, they'll watch the rest of NATO get into it, but them themselves, they're not going to get into it. And if they are going to get into it, it will just be like, a few special forces here and there. It's not going to be anything grand. Their whole thing is basically trying to lasso the Russians. They're trying to surround the Russians. If they can get, like I said, I've mentioned this before, if they can just get their missiles into Ukraine and solidify a base in Ukraine, um, then they can, you know, it's almost like a checkmate because they've got missiles right on the doorstep of Russia. And part of Russia's aggression towards Ukraine is they can probably see by satellite images what is going on. They can probably see that the United States is already putting that infrastructure in place under the guise of a different title or under a different label, not the United States, but they're putting that infrastructure in place. So rather than debate about it, the Russians are just like, look, we have to go to war. We have to push back. They're putting missiles right on our doorstep. Obviously the Russians are going to say, no, no, it's not. They're not. As the Australians did. Australians, they got nuclear submarines, or submarines which were able to um, payload nuclear weapons, but they said, no, 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 we're not using it for that. It's just that they're able to. Come on, who do you think you're fooling? Like, this is the thing. When you live in a society which is controlled by technicalities and technical language and loopholes, such as we're reading here in I was about to say devils in eagles clothing, vultures in eagles clothing. As we're reading here, there's a lot of technicalities such as this and loopholes, and you can get out of it like this. So a lot of the Western way is to basically do something, and uh, if it can't technically be proved, then they're good. No, in the real world, it doesn't work like that. In the real world, it does not work like that. It's not like um, you know, if someone knows, they know. You know, if they know, they know. They don't need to know that they know. They know. You know. Oh, you slept with this one slept with my missus. I'm gonna kill that guy. Well, the guy might say, well, technically, you didn't prove it, man. You know, technically, and all this no, 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 no. Men don't play that. Real men, look, trying to say to Russia that we have, satellite images might show that, okay, yes, our boots are on the ground, but we're just conversing with them, and that's silent. Russians can see through the satellite images what is going on, the activities of the Americans. They might be very disguised about it, but it comes to a point where technicalities and all that kind of proven things, it doesn't really hold firm. Um, Ultimately, they're all slightly controlled by, Russia being controlled by oligarchs and the West being controlled by these financial families and everything like that. They've created the last 2 years has allowed them to create, like I say, a great amount of wealth. They've got the bunkers, they've got the swimming pools down in the bunkers, everything's set up. So they're ready to go now. This is go time. This is upset prophecy time. If we can just get rid of the Russians, then we can upset prophecy, we can live out our lives, like we can do away with the Bible, everything in the Bible doesn't exist. We've just proved that the Most High Yahweh doesn't exist. That's their way of thinking. This is all about upsetting prophecy. Remember, who are the banking families? What nationality do they subscribe to? Do they subscribe to white? No, they call white goyim. Goyim means cattle. So what do they subscribe to? What do you call them? Jewish. This is all about the Bible. This is all about the Bible. It's not about the Talmud. It's not about the Quran. It's not about anything else. This is about the Bible. Why do you look? Anyway, look. Let me get back to the book. But all I will say is that um, the Jews, the Jewish, they're not the Jews, but the Jewish are trying to upset prophecy. And someone might say, "Oh, why are you saying they're not the Jews? You know, that's anti-Semitic." Well, it's anti-Shemitic, Shem, Shem, rather than. Let's go ahead to minutes. Sorry, I just got a text message there. Um, I'm gonna get back to this book. As I say, um, isn't it funny how the people that say that they are the Jews of the Bible do not subscribe to the Bible. They don't read the Bible. They're not interested in the Bible. They have their own book called the Talmud. So we'll call ourselves the Israelites. Yeah, we'll call ourselves the Israelites of the Bible, but we're not interested in the Bible. The Talmud is our book. Anyway, I digress. That was. Let's get back to this. So the ultimate roots of this conspiracy are disputed. One website, for instance, locates the beginnings of the supplanting of the common law by Admiralty law in the doings of the George Rapp Harmony Society, a 19th century utopian community founded by one George Rapp in 1805. As the website declares, evidence will show the tremendous wealth accumulated. Sorry, as the website declares, other legal populists identify bankers, bureaucrats, or internationalists as the shadowy figures behind the conspiracy. So let's go up and read this little bit here. Evidence will show the tremendous wealth accumulated by this society was subsequently used to fashion a George Rapp society on a much larger scale, with plans to ultimately encompass the world in a superstate controlled and governed by mercantile interests under the law of Admiralty law, a superstate wherein all the property in the world and all the people on spaceship Earth are pledged to the benefit of this worldwide mercantile association, the New World Order. Didn't Carl Schwab, um, the new face of this whole pandemic or plandemic, whatever they call it, Carl Schwab said recently that in 2030, you will own nothing and be happy. You will own nothing and be happy. You will rent everything. So, and when it says you will be happy, when that statement where it says you will be happy, that's not genuine. That's not genuinely that you will be happy. That's like someone pointing their finger at you and saying that accept this, you will be happy. Do you understand? It's not genuinely saying that you're going to be happy. Um, so they believe. 2030. So I'll read that last blurb there. Contrast to mainstream beliefs in identity doctrine, the biblical lost tribes migrated from the Middle East to settle the Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic nations of Western Europe and North America. So the Anglo-Saxons, so they migrated from the Middle East to settle the Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic nations of Western Europe and North America. Yes, so the original Europe, they say that Europe actually is named after a black woman, Europa. But then the original Europeans, yeah, original Europeans were dark-skinned, Japhetic people, really. You would have had some Israelites there, but that land was given to the people of Japhet. I know a lot of Edomites try to claim, Edomites being like so-called white people, try to claim that they are Japhetic. They are not Japhetic. They are, and Benjamin Franklin wrote a paper about this, a deep paper about this, which said that, you know, original Europeans, even Russians, Germans, they were dark-skinned people. The art shows this. The art shows that they were dark-skinned people. But obviously, during the 1500s, during iconoclasm, the rebirth of the Edomite nation, a lot of that art was tampered with, destroyed, hidden, to perpetuate the falsehood that the original Europeans were the same complexion as the white people today. The original Europeans were the so-called white people today. That is what the whole thing about destroying the art was about. But yes, the Anglo-Saxons, all of those Vikings, Anglo-Saxons, angelic sons of Isaac, really, that's what that translates to. All of these people were dark-skinned people, you know. But let's continue. So the United States, nations of Western Europe and North America. The United States, not Israel, is the genuine promised new Holy Land. I don't know where they're getting that from. That's not true. White Aryans are the authentic Israelites. Jews are said to be descended from Cain, the literal spawn of Eve and Satan. This is ridiculous. And are the mortal enemies of identity Christians. Well, Israelites are Christians. The first Christians were called Christians in Antioch, but they were Israelites. They were just Israelites subscribed to a Roman doctrine. That's all it was. Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, and other non-whites, the mud peoples, are said to have branched from the evolutionary tree long before Adam. The first white Homo sapiens appeared, making them spiritually soulless and culturally and intellectually on par with higher animals. So basically, the real Israelites, the so-called blacks, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Well, they even threw Chinese in here, which are obviously not the Israelites, although you will have some of them that do look like Israelites pertaining to the speckled bird. So we are, to them, apparently mud people that sprung from a tree long before Adam and are on par with higher animals, you know. So we're on par with higher animals. So we're on the bottom of the totem pole, but we're on the top of the bottom of the totem pole. And it's funny that they call them on par with higher animals because, in a way, we are. You know how the animals are very spiritual and animals are very intuitive. They have intuition much higher than, like, there's animals out there that I would say are more intelligent than, especially today, the people that you see today that are brainwashed and highly fluoridated. An eagle can see for miles. An owl can see prey in the ground. An owl can hunt completely silently. A shark can detect a drop of blood from a long distance away, a mile away or more. So a cheetah can run with just its legs higher than 60 miles per hour. So to call us higher animals, yeah, you're right in a way. You're right in a way, because we do have a spiritual power that other nations, when we're tapped into the Most High, we do have spiritual power that other nations don't have. We have a spiritual link to the Most High. The Most High can tell us things before they happen, and this pertaining to His real people, like His real, But even on the whole, the Israelites have like a spiritual connect with with higher powers that other nations don't have. If you look at the North American Indians, a lot of the stuff that they would do would be going off, but they do have a spiritual connect that other nations don't have. Whether it just be like, let's say like a starry night. It's a starry night, and they have the fireplace out, they have the campfire out, and they're all sitting around the campfire. They've got some lamb going, and they're singing how they do. The chanting that they do. They sing yay 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 ha 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 yay ha. They do that. They're invoking spirits when they do that, but they seemed to have, even though it was going off, it wasn't. They weren't speaking to the Most High, really, but in a way they were. Like, they weren't following the statutes and the laws of the Bible, which was made for them, but they still have a connect. Look at their connection with eagles and wolves and bison. They have a spiritual connect to the lands. They have a spiritual connect to the skies. Like, there is a connect there. There is a connect there. But ultimately, they were slated for slavery. Israelites were slated to be in derision by the waster, by the destroyer. So, but it is interesting. I mean, there's stones. There's a stone even today. One of the brothers, I can't remember what state he's from, but one of the brothers of GMS done a video where you can see one of the stones located in North America, where the tribes were, had the Hebrew engraved into the stone. So they knew Hebrew. They knew Hebrew. They knew Hebrew. These are one of the tribes. They are the tribe of Gad. They are the tribe of Gad. They're also, and Simeon as well. There's 12 tribes of Israel, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. But also don't forget that the speckled bird spoken of, the parable of the wheat and the tares. So we were scattered as punishment throughout all four corners of the earth. So there are going to be Israelites that do look like the other nations. There are going to be Israelites that do look Japanese or Chinese or so-called white. But they are truly, let's say, I can just name a few off the spirit. John Lennon, for example, of the Beatles. I can see that that's not. I don't think that's an Edomite. I don't think that's an. Or let's say like Slim Shady. They used to call him Slim Shady. He's called Eminem nowadays. But I remember he done one song called "We Shine, We Shine." I think it's called the Ruckus. It's called the Ruckus or We Shine. I remember when I was listening to that, and I don't know, something about that song all those years ago when I was listening to that. I was in high school when I first heard that. I was about 16. That was, how long ago was that? That was about 18 years ago or something like that. But I remember when I first heard that, I was just like, there's something about that guy. He's not like the typical white guy. And as I get older, I realize that Eminem's not he's not an Edomite. People like Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, I don't think that's a Moabite. I don't think that's a so-called Chinese person. I think he's an Israelite. Like the scriptures say with the speckled bird. Let's get that. Speckled bird. Jeremiah 12 and 9. mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds round about are against her. Come ye assemble, all the beasts of the field come to devour. So many pastors have destroyed my vineyard. They have trodden my portion underfoot. They have made my pleasant portion a desolate wilderness. They have made it desolate, and being desolate it mourneth unto me. The whole land is made desolate because no man layeth it to heart. Yeah, we are mourning and we are desolate, but the Lord is in the process of bringing us back, pertaining to building back the house of David. So some people might look at that and go, "Oh, you're just picking and choosing. You're just picking the best people and then just saying that they're Israelites." Well, we are the best. Look, let me get that. Matthew 5:13. Ye are the salt of the earth. You get it? Ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. So this is like a backhanded compliment by the Most High. But as you can see, ye are the salt of the earth. Yeah, the Israelites are the salt of the earth, the life of the party. You will know an Israelite, and when you get good at it, you can even tell an Israelite from a distance. It gets to a point where it's almost telepathic. You can tell an Israelite from a distance, or yeah, things of that nature. But you kind of can see in the spirit. You can kind of see there's a difference about them, a certain difference about them. And then when they open their mouth and speak, and then the words that come out of their mouth, you can then hear further on that they're not. You can see it first, and then you hear it. It might not be pertaining to the Bible, but it will have connotations of the same spirit. So you might hear things like, let's say for Bruce Lee's example, you'll hear things like be like water, be free, be like water. You'll hear certain things like that. And with the Beatles, you can name numerous things. With Eminem, like I said, that song "We Shine." We shine. What do you mean we shine? Who are you talking about? Detroit? No, no, no. You're not talking about Detroit. You think you're talking about Detroit. Anyway, let me go into legal populism and conspiracy theory are linked not only substantively but also in terms of common interpretive practices. Many legal populists' texts exhibit both the desire for and endless deferral of a secret answer, frequently deferred on websites for the purpose of getting the reader to pay money for the book, video, or kit. And painful but also giddy excess of meaning this endless interpreting brings about. Sorry, let me go back up. By rejecting that interpreting brings about. So, and the painful, so they want you to buy kits and everything, books and video kits, and the painful but also giddy excess of meaning this endless interpreting brings about. By rejecting the traditional means by which professional legal insiders produce interpretive closure, most notably the acceptance of the Supreme Court as the final authoritative arbiter of what the law is. Legal populists introduce the possibility of endless interpretation. So they're saying legal populists introduce the possibility of endless interpretation, which really the law which has been created by the American courts and other Western courts is just about who is best at um, abusing or using loopholes. Who's the best at seeing loopholes and acting on them? It's a big game. It's a big game. The whole court thing is a big. It's not about justice. It's about who wins. Like, it's not black and white. Legal populists also produce the possibility of endless interpretation by rejecting the limits professional legal interpreters place on what constitutes a legitimate text for interpretation. Legal populists find meaning in signs professionals Legal populists find meaning in signs professionals find meaningless. For some, the fact that certain American flags in courtrooms have a gold fringe betrays that these are admiralty courts and, and not courts of the United States domestic law. Capitalization is also an important resource for hidden meaning within legal populism. For some legal populists, a pari's name, when written entirely in capital letters, represents a different legal entity than when only the initial letters are capitalized. Let's read that again. Capitalism, capitalization, so when you put a capital at the beginning of your name, is also an important resource for hidden meaning within legal populism. For some, For some legal populists, a party's name, when written entirely in capital letters, represents a different legal entity than when only the initial letters are capitalized. I believe they call that John Doe. John Doe. Other writers noting, and yeah, that's exactly as he said it, a John Doe. So it's a completely separate entity than yourself, which is why your birth certificate is in capital letters as well. It's really a John Doe, which means it's not really you. It's a representation of you. You're working for your John Doe. You're representing your John Doe. Um, so other writers noting that the that Article 3 of the construction of the Constitution vests the judicial power of the United States in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. Sometimes argue that the lowercase spelling of supreme in that clause and in Article 1 means that the United States Supreme Court of the Judiciary Act of 1789 is not the Supreme Court of Article 3. So Act of 1979 is not the Supreme Court of Article 3, just by the changing of the Supreme with an S, big S, and the Supreme with a small s. So the careful, the careful delineation, uh, the careful delineation, which means to derivative, the careful delineation of patriot theorists between citizenship and citizenship provides another example of the importance of capitalization. According to some patriot narratives, sovereign citizenship is the original form of citizenship and carries with it the inalienable political rights enumerated in the Bill of Rights. In contrast, 14th Amendment citizenship is a second class citizenship, one which carries with it only civil rights, rights that are in fact mere privileges granted by the government and revocable at the government's whim. Yeah, there's a lot of rights like that. They say that, they even say that driving is a privilege, it's not a right. There's other examples. The divergence between these two forms of citizenship can be tracked by observing the word citizen that's with a small c is always capitalized in the Constitution until 1868 when the 14th Amendment was adopted. So in 1868, 14th Amendment comes about, and they changed the spelling out of the word citizenship. It used to be a big C at the beginning, as you would, and then in 1868 they changed it to a small c. Very, yeah, like I say, it's very full of loopholes. It's very conniving. A lot of these laws, these court laws, are very conniving. It's about who can see the loopholes. That's what it's about. Your lawyer is not really about fighting for justice and whatnot. It's about which lawyer has the best arsenal of loopholes and counteracts. That's it. That's all it is. So let's read on. I'll skip this blurb here. In fact, let's read this. This might be interesting actually. So one of the persistent myths among political dissidents is that such usages as initial or completive capitalization of names indicates different legal entities or a different legal status for the entity. They see a person's name sometimes written in all caps and sometimes written only in initial caps, and attribute a sinister intent to this difference. They also attach special meanings to the ways words may be capitalized or abbreviated in founding documents such as constitutions or the early writings of the founders. Such people seem to resist all efforts to explain that such conventions have no legal significance whatsoever, that they are just ways to emphasize certain kinds of type, to make it easier for the reader to scan the documents quickly and organize the contents in his mind. So whoever believes that last paragraph, they're basically saying that there's no difference between citizenship with a big C and a small c. The writer here is saying such people seem to resist all efforts to explain that such conventions have no legal significance whatsoever, that they are just ways to emphasize certain kinds of type, to make it easier for the reader to scan the documents quickly and organize the contents in his mind. Do you really believe that that is what that changing of capitalization is about? To make it easier for the reader to scan and change, to scan and compartmentalize information. That's folly. That's ridiculous. So some of this book obviously is written in an apologist way, apologist for the higher powers. But you just have to chew the meat and spit out the bones. So I'll continue. Sometimes the gap between popular and professional constitutionalism Sometimes the gap between popular and professional constitutionalism reflects the convention more than substance. For example, the online article raises the interesting and legal legitimate question of what United States citizenship mean before and after passage of the 14th Amendment. Its main source of legal authority, however, is Black's Law Dictionary. At another times, the gap seems due to the different interpretive methods of professional constitutional scholarship and legal populism. Legal populism, influenced by the interpretive methods of conspiracy theory, assumes the existence of secret meanings and hieroglyphs, whereas professional constitutionalism assumes that there is only one law and that it is, in theory, transparently available to all. There's only one surface, there is only surface, no depth, which is, like I say, this is apologist language. There's only surface, no depth to the law which is available to everyone, really. The result is that legal populists analysis, though it resembles legal reasoning, turns legal reasoning on its head, where legal insiders stake their claim to the law's legitimacy and primacy over politics on the idea that legal reasoning is a stable, closed, interpretive practice that aspires to the prestige of science. That outsiders who maintain legal populism turn law into an open discourse, a practice that endlessly generates more and more interpretation. Well, they're just learning from the master, are they not? Legal populism resembles conspiracy theorizing as well in the emotions it generates and in the invitations it offers to the participant. It invites not it invites one not only to be outraged and frightened by the efforts of various conspiracies to usurp the rights of American citizens, but also to be uh, enlightened and empowered to claim one's own rights, usually by purchasing something. The dethroning of the state's monopoly over interpretation itself is empowering. Is empowering. Private legal interpretation makes possible the collective founding of new legal worlds. As in the common law court of the United States of America. So let's read that again. The dethroning of the state's monopoly over interpretation itself is empowering. Private legal interpretation makes possible the collective founding of new legal worlds, as in the common law court of the United States of America. It also promises individuals emancipation from the bureaucracies that govern most citizens' everyday lives. Indeed, the do-it-yourself mentality of legal populism offers a capacity for agency seldom found in everyday public life. So seldom. So indeed, that means not often. So indeed, the do-it-yourself mentality of legal populism offers a capacity for agency seldom found in everyday public life. So it's more people seeking out their own, representing themselves, or seeking out their own, seeking out justice by researching the law themselves, which is only a good thing. Obviously, not for the higher powers and the courts and stuff, but for the people, it would be. So let's see. Although Hofstadter saw the paranoid style as a long-standing but ultimately minor strain in American politics, more recently, cultural studies academics have argued that it has become ubiquitous. Ubiquitous, let's look at that word. Bic. Ubiquitous, present, appearing, or found everywhere. So let's read that again. Although Hofstadter saw the paranoid style as a long-standing but ultimately minor strain in American politics, more recently, cultural studies academics have argued that it has become ubiquitous, so found everywhere. Peter Knight notes that we're all conspiracy theorists now. Timothy Melly agrees. Conspiratorial explanations have become a central feature of American political discourse, a way of understanding power that appeals to both marginalized groups and the power elite. So Timothy Melly agrees. Conspiratorial explanations have become a central feature of American political discourse. Well, I would imagine that they would be a feature of American political discourse. So let's read that again. Timothy Melly agrees. Conspiratorial explanations have become a central feature of American political discourse, and that would be particularly after 2001, the 9/11 towers. A lot of people became so-called political. Anyone that was seen questioning what happened that day was seen as a foil tin hat. What do they call them? Tin hat or foil hat conspiracy theorists. So if someone said, how did such a tall building crumble at its foundation from a plane hitting the very top of it? Like, even when you play Jenga, you'll find that there's still the bottom is like it doesn't, the whole thing doesn't fall down. It's just you know, let's say if something. In fact, Jenga is not even a good example because we're talking about steel. We're talking about real. Let's say let's say if a bird hits a plane at a plane which is going full speed, like the dent in that plane will be huge. In fact, let's not use that because people say, "Oh, well, the bird splattered as well." Let's just say this: that many people had questions about that day, from how can steel beams uh, um, bend as they did, or what was that people on the ground talking about, what was that rumble that I felt before the plane hit? Like I felt something under my feet, like a rumble. Or some people might say, why were so many of those elites, the ones that call themselves Jewish, why were they off that day in great number? Why was that specific demographic off that day? Or some might say, I heard like a big bang, like even before, So there's many questions of that day, and that day would have caused a lot of people to, as Timothy Melly says here, conspiratorial explanations had become a central feature of American political discourse, a way of understanding power that appeals to both marginalized groups and the power elite. In this section and the one that follows, I explore both perspectives: conspiracy theorizing generally and legal populism in particular as a symptom of modern political culture generally, and as the voice of a specific subculture. If it is true, as some authors contend, that conspiracy theorizing has become a central feature of American political discourse, why is this so? Several social theorists argue that conspiracy theorizing is the result of a shockwave generated when deeply rooted narratives of individualism and agency hit the reality of a world increasingly controlled by large impersonal forces, economic, political, and ecological. So let's read that again. So if it is true, as some authors contend, that conspiracy theorizing has become a central feature of American political discourse, why is this so? Several social theorists argue that conspiracy theorizing is the result of a shockwave generated when deeply rooted narratives of individualism and agency hit the reality of a world increasingly controlled by large impersonal forces, economic, political, and ecological. In this world, uh, in this world, selves are asked to respond with an ever-increasing velocity and flexibility to an onslaught of information and disciplinary demands. William Connolly describes the contemporary predicament vividly in what is perhaps academic equivalent of apocalyptic fiction. There is first in intensification of the experience of owing one's life and destiny to world historical, national, and local bureaucratic forces. There is second a decline in the confidence many constituencies have in the probable future to which they find themselves contributing in daily life. There is third an even more ominous set of future possibilities that weigh upon life in the present. As I said, the Georgia Guidestone says maintain society under 500 million. So if the world is at if the world is at 8 billion, then you're talking of eradicating 7.5 billion lives. And the Bible does talk of eradicating many lives, but it's not in the same. It's not in the same bracket as Esau intends. So Esau does intends to do away with 7.5 billion and keep 500 million in a sort of Elysium. So and ultimately, the goalposts change with Esau a lot. So it says 500 million, but that's just to get the numbers down. Ultimately, he would whittle that down to, let's say, probably like I'd say about 10 million. Ultimately, if you understand who Esau is and how Esau works and how just his nature, you will know that those goalposts would move ultimately from 500 million to about 10 million. I'd say about 10 million, possibly 20, possibly. But ultimately, he would want it down to around 20 million, 20 to 10 million, with a vast majority of that being like workers of the cog, workers that just kept things going along with machinery. So the climatic changes generated by late industrial society may eventually sink large chunks of inhabitable and arable land under the sea. Crisis in essential supplies of oil or safe water or good soil or oxygen may flow from the effort to industrialize the entire world. State and non-state terrorism may escalate into a condition of continuous insecurity and violence, unconfined by state boundaries and the impotency of a late modern state, or a non-state fragment may produce a nuclear exchange that destroys civilization or removes human life from the face of the earth. That's prophecy. That is prophecy. That flaming arrows will be shot from one end of the earth to the other. Conspiracy theory thus expresses both desire for political agency and the fear that such agency is no longer possible. In the academic literature, this idea comes in various shades of sympathy or contempt for the conspiracy theorists themselves, with more than a whiff of condescension towards the mass man. With more than a whiff of condescension towards the mass man. I mean, this language is apologetic. Come on, more than a whiff of condescension. Do you not? Is it not like an onslaught of condescension? But anyway, it's we can talk about writing styles and the rest of it. That's. But I just see that as a little bit light to call. I mean, this was written in 2005, mind you, but still, after I mean that should 2005 should still be enough time to understand what is going on. But I guess after the last 2, 3 years, it's more vivid now. So I'm in a way talking in hindsight. I digress anyway. Let's go on. Frederick Jameson describes conspiracy theorizing as the poor person's cognitive mapping in the postmodern age. It'll be see. Look, this is so. Frederick Jameson describes conspiracy theorizing as the poor person's cognitive mapping in the postmodern age. So he writes that. Wouldn't it be? He writes that back in 2005. But wouldn't it be interesting to see how Frederick Jameson is getting on today? How he got on the last 2 years. So it is a degraded figure of the total logic of late capital, a desperate attempt to represent the latter's system. More recent writers see conspiracy theorists as less poor and desperate, and as more representative of everyone. Mark Fenster argues that those who see key world historic decisions being made by tiny elites have, after all, a point. One needs not assume that the state is the direct instrument of a hidden transhistoric, transhistorical ruling class or elite to recognize the degree to which economic and political power are concentrated in the hands of a tiny sector of national and international population. Fenster describes conspiracy theorizing as a response to the tendency towards excluding real social antagonisms and debates from the public sphere, and the logic of control that has come to permeate the decaying institutions, structures, and spaces that compose what remains of civil society. For Fenster, the conspiracy narrative needs to be recognized for what it is, a utopian desire to understand and confront the contradictions and conflicts of contemporary capitalism. And that's what it is. Let's read that again. For Fenster, the conspiracy narrative needs to be recognized for what it is, a utopian desire to understand and confront the contradictions and conflicts of contemporary capitalism. So basically, everyday life. What it is they've created a situation, the elites, whatever you want to call them, have created a situation which is non-conducive to the Elysium they want. They want a utopia, but they need cogs, they need grunts, they need the slaves, right? But then it gets to a point where the society is built up to a point where they don't really need these people. They're just useless eaters, as they call them. They're just goyim. They're just cattle. So let's make robots. So this is how they're doing. Let's make robots, and they will kind of keep the cog going. We'll have a certain amount of engineers. They will work on the robots, oil the robots, and make sure they're all right and everything. And then just get rid of everyone else and just have an Elysium. Just have engineers that work the robots, enough women, and they're basically trying to create their Garden of Eden. But their Garden of Eden is not organic, it's full of metal. It's full of metal and glass and brick, but it's still their little Elysium which they're trying to create. In their eyes, everyone else has served their purpose. So all you can do now for the Elysium is be a slave. How are you going to be a slave? By inserting a chip into your hand, into your shoulder, or whatever you want to call it. Inserting a chip into your body. Number one, it shows your allegiance to the machine. It shows that you're pledging your allegiance. You're becoming a cog to the machine. It shows that you're completely subservient. and yeah, you submit to becoming a slave. That's it. You submit to becoming a slave. Because remember, they aim to do away with money. They aim to do away with money. Everything you pay for is paid for by your social credit score. If you go to a coffee shop, you have a good interaction with the with the person serving you coffee. They give you a like, you give them a like, you go about your business, they continue serving coffee. When you go to buy some bread and milk, you hold the door open for someone. They give you a like, you give them a like, you go about your business. If you've got enough likes at the end of the week, you know, maybe you can buy some, fries or an extra burger or an extra milkshake, or maybe you can go and watch a movie or something like that. This is the life that they want. They want to do away with cash, remember. Now, if you have a bad interaction with that coffee person and they mark you down and you get enough of those likes down, they'll just oust you out of society. They'll turn off your chip. You won't be able to buy. You won't be able to sell. You won't be able to travel to work or whatever have you. You'll be completely locked out of society. And, however long they want to do that, that's dependent. Maybe 5 hours, maybe one day, maybe 1 week, hell, maybe a year. We don't know. That's how, but this is what they want, a subservient society. Yeah, there'll be bodies dead on the road and stuff like that, through starvation and whatever have you. But that's what they want. Robots will come along with wheelbarrows and put those people into the wheelbarrows and cast them into a furnace and cremate them. This is the society that they want, though. I'm just showing you the vision of the society which they want. So yeah, there will be sections which look like Skid Row, where people who've been locked out of society are located. But for the most part, it will be flowers and sunshine and you know sugar and spice and everything nice, and everyone's smiling with really, really, really white teeth. So more recent writers see conspiracy theorists as less poor and desperate and as more as representative of everyone. So let's go further down. For Fenster, the conspiracy narrative needs to be recognized for what it is, a utopian desire to understand and confront the contradictions and conflicts of contemporary capitalism. Jody Dean argues that the torrent of information, some accurate and much not, available though through the internet, necessarily makes everyone into a conspiracy theorist. Dean notes that both the endless drive for more, like conspiracy. Dean notes that both the endless drive for more and more interpretation towards a closure that can never take place, and the pleasure and pain that construction conspiracy theories produces is a response to contemporary technoculture and an age of ever proliferating information symbolized by the World Wide Web and what she calls Siberia. That's an interesting term. But yeah, that's what it is. It's moving towards a more technological age. And this is back in 2005. It's definitely advanced here in 2022, but they want more. They want it, and they want it faster. They've made leaps and bounds in the last 3 years in terms of their vision, but it's not enough, and they do not want to let go of this whole virus situation. They do not want to let go of that. That is a lot of money which was made in a very, very short time. So it's to the point where, yeah, they're onto us, the people are onto us, but who cares? They're subjected now. Look how much money we've got. They're subjected. Just hike up their electric, or just hike up their oil, or Do you know what? Just bombard them from all sides. They won't even know where to protest next. They won't even know where to put their picket fence. Just and up the fluoride in their water as well. In fact, you know what? Turn on some of those 5G towers and see what that graphene oxide does to some of them. Oh, some of them are falling down on football pitches, and the referees are falling down. And so what? Turn it down a little bit. Timothy Melly, examining American conspiracy thinking post World War II, argues that conspiracy theorizing results from the attempt to come to terms with the social theorists' familiar dilemma of agency versus structure. What he terms agency panic emerges from the desire to preserve the fantasy of perfect individual power, freedom, and responsibility that constitutes an essential element of the American dream, while at the same time taking account of the undeniable facts made vivid in the popular culture of the 1950s and 1960s that behavior can be manipulated and that the self is thus much more vulnerable than the fantasy suggests. Conspiracy theory is thus attractive and wholly American, one might add, in a way that it imagines the possibility of pure agency setting up a clean battle between heroic individuals and sinister forces rather than recognizing the always compromised nature of agency in the midst of structural constraint. As I've suggested, conspiracy theory is embedded in legal populism, but where conspiracy theory alone seems to offer only the rush and anxiety of endlessly proliferating clues to an endlessly deferred truth, legal populism offers a sturdier resolution of the dramas of agency and power it presents. So, in this respect, legal populism strongly resembles survivalism. In his book Dancing at Armageddon, cultural anthropologist Richard Mitchell investigates the troubles that might be coming to America and the people looking forward to them. These troubles include environmental catastrophe, economic collapse, seditious insurrection, widespread civil strife, internine race war, thermonuclear holocaust, invasions from within, abroad or above, and other calamities. And this is all written in the Bible. He spoke about he spoke about economic collapse and environmental catastrophe. We're seeing that volcanoes and let's get that scripture. So this is Matthew 24 and 4. And Yahushai Hamashiach, I say Yahushai, it says Jesus here. Jesus is not the name of the Messiah. The letter J didn't come about until 1524 by a man named Jean Trissino. The letter J was the last letter implemented to the alphabet. So we know that the Lord was not born in 1524. And his actual name in the Hebrew, Yahushai, meaning he deliverer or he saves, Hamashiach meaning anointed. So Matthew 15 and 4, Matthew 24 and 4. And Yahushua Mahashiach answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Hamashiach, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumours of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places, and these are the beginning of sorrows. So let me see if there's more. So, yep, there's talk of neighbor against neighbor. See, this is talking more so talking about Jacob's trouble. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another. This is Matthew 24:10. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. That is pertaining to Israelites. But yeah, as I say, thermonuclear holocaust. We know that the world, that the power structure of the beast comes to an end through thermonuclear holocaust. Invasions from invasions from within, abroad, or above. Highlight on above. See that? Invasions from within, abroad, or above. What do you think he's talking about? This Richard Mitchell, when he says abroad or above, he's talking about chariots. This is all biblical, which he's talking about chariots. Abroad or above, that is talking about chariots. When I say chariots, I'm talking about what the average person calls UFOs or UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenons. They call them nowadays. They call them UAPs nowadays. But those are the chariots of the Lord, and the angels are in those chariots, driving those vehicles, controlling those vehicles, which are far surpassed, which are far superior in technology to your average jet fighter or your best jet fighters. Your F-18s, your Sukhoi 35s, your Sukhoi 33s, your F-15s, your French Rafales, your Typhoon 22s, your Sabres, your Secret Tech. These UFOs run circles around those contraptions. It reminds me of the. It reminds me of that Mike Tyson thing, which he said, "How dare these boxers? Challenge me with their. What did he say? Let me get that. He said something like, "How dare these boxers challenge me with their brutish skills or their archaic skills?" I was like, "How dare they? How dare they challenge me with their brutish styles, their something like archaic or something." I can't remember which adjective he used, but it was funny. I digress. Anyway, so Mitchell writes, survival scenarios exhibit four essential criteria. They post conditions that are global, caused, amenable to technique, and susceptible to individual solutions. Survivalists tell stories about the trouble to come and identify the shadowy elites behind them, but they are even more interested, argues Mitchell, in developing the knowledge and skills necessary to weather these troubles when they arrive. Buying firearms and learning how to use them, building bomb shelters, buying and hoarding freeze-dried food, and going off the power grid are all forms of survivalist society, social creativity. In the narrative of legal populism, the troubles described are political, non-environmental, but they offer the same tantalizing promise of cultural creation. Legal populism, like survivalism more generally, rests on the creation of survival scenarios, the betrayal of the American people by the forces of secret societies, global finance, and national possible international political elites in a crisis that affects the entire nation and eventually the world, at least if the new world order is successfully put into place as the elites hope. Well, it will be put into a place to a degree, like the Bible says that they will hide in the clefts of the rocks. They will hide down in the bunkers, and that some of them will even go up. Some elites are even going to go up. So you're going to have elites that go down into bunkers. You're going to have elites that go up, looking for an Elysium there. And but the Lord speaks about that. He says that He's going to fish them out of the holes, and that He's going to, basically knock them out of the sky. So there's not going to be any, because what the plan for the elite. I'll tell you, this is the mindset of the elite, that basically, so what is it called? Ordo ob chaos, ordo ob chaos. So order out of chaos in the Latin. That is what order ob chaos in Latin means, order out of chaos. So their whole thing is create as much chaos in the world as possible, because ultimately they've got enough bunkers fitted with all the trimmings anyway. So they will just go down there in the bunkers, wait it out, and just just continue from there. They'll have nurses and stuff down there, so even if it goes into the years, that they'll still be able to populate vast, we're talking about vast cities underground. And their whole aim is to rise from the ashes like a phoenix after however many years, and populate the earth again. But as you know, the Lord said that He's going to fish them out of their bunkers, and He's going to let's get that. So it says, Jeremiah 16:16, behold, I will send for many fishers, saith the Lord, and they shall fish them. And this is talking after the destruction, after the nukes have been fired. Behold, I will send for many fishers, saith the Lord, and they shall fish them. And after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. So then many elites are going to be privy to that, and they're going to say, well, I'll just top myself then. I'll just suicide. So I'm not becoming anyone's slave, because the Lord, this is what's going to happen to those when they get taken out of those holes. This is what's going to happen to them. Psalm 149 and 8. One second. So Psalm 149 and 5. I'll start from 5. Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. This is after all is said and done. Let the high praises of the Most High Yahweh be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people. So these are the Israelites taking vengeance on those that have subjected them, laughed at them, called them by proverbs for all these years, centuries, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all His saints, praise ye the Lord. So those that enjoy the fruits of those bunkers are ultimately going to be the first fruits of subjection, or some might say slavery, but many of the elites, they have the mindset of, well, I wouldn't be a slave. I'll just, I'll just top myself, or I'll take a cyanide pill or whatever whenever I hear the screams or the shooting or the firing. But that's not going to work, because the Lord talks about um, um, reincarnation. So basically, all of us here today, all of us living today, enjoying today, and tomorrow or yesterday, apparatus are tomorrow. But what I'm saying is that we've all been here before. This is not our first rodeo. We've all been on this earth before. This is sometimes why you might have a certain affinity to a certain person. You might have known them in the past. This is why you might have a liking to a certain family member of the past. Your grand might say something like, "Oh, you're like," or some family member might say, "Oh, you're similar to this person. You were similar to this person in your family. Oh, your great granddad, he used to be like this." It might just be you coming back as that same person. You might have an affinity to someone that you've never even met before. You meet them for the first time, but you get on really well, and it seems like you've known them for ages. You might have known them for ages. Um, but anyway, yeah, the Lord says that He brings everyone back in their third and fourth generation. So we've all been here before. It's not our first times here, and it's not going to be our last times here. So um, all you're really doing, to those who choose to suicide in that scenario, all you would really be doing is invoking further wrath, because you tried to rob Israel, or you tried to rob Yahushua of his inheritance, where the Lord says He's going to give the heathen as an inheritance. You try to rob them of their inheritance, or you try to seek an easy way out. So yeah, we're all spirits. We don't die until the Lord chooses to get rid of that spirit. He's the Father of spirits. So yeah, that's just my quick. Uh, that's all I want to say about that regarding the, those times and those who want to go out like that. It's not a good idea. So let's go to, this betrayal was not divinely caused but came about for specific historical reasons, and much of legal populism involves tracing the historic and pinpointing just where the corruption began. The theft of the true constitution and its recovery are, moreover, luckily both amendable to technique and susceptible to individual and collective solutions. Essential to both legal populism and survivalism generally is the possibility of agency through technical mastery. Survivalists take pride in their mastery over the physical and craft skills necessary to survive mass natural and or political disaster. Legal populists seek to develop a different kind of mastery by personal study, collective investigation, and of course, purchasing the right guidebooks and produces and products ordinary people can learn to. So, and of course, purchasing the right guidebooks and products, ordinary people can learn to read and understand the law, one of the most complex and abstruse bodies of text in existence, and one with enormous power in modern society. Indeed, legal populism offers the possibility of mastery over the law, the ability to know what is true and what is false, not by relying on someone's authority, but by wielding key texts that make internal analysis and critique possible. In this way, legal populism, in its practical aspect, offers the promise of individual solutions not only by learning to make one's own gas masks or to fire a gun, but by learning the law. Learning the law in turn creates political agency. The the legit these words, the delegitimization of the United States government and the re-establishment of legitimate legal authority is only a land patent or a tax return away. So let's read that again. The delegitimization of the United States government and the re-establishment of legitimate legal authority is only a land patent or tax return away. Scholars of conspiracy frequently identify contemporary capitalism as the major social institution which conspiracy theorists and survivalists resist. With respect to legal populism, however, politics is the key site of struggle. To the extent that legal populism holds out hope for political reconstruction and re-empowerment through the rediscovery of the true law and the restoration of the sovereign citizen's relationship to that law, its narratives can be understood as nostalgia for relations of power that have long been eclipsed by other, more modern forms of domination. Indeed, its narratives can be understood as nostalgia for relations of power that never actually existed. Michael Foucault is Michael Foucault is often cited as saying that in contemporary society, institutional power appears in at least three different forms that form a mutually supporting triangle: sovereign or juridical power. So Michael Foucault is often cited as saying that in contemporary society, institutional power appears in at least three different forms that form a mutually supporting triangle: sovereign or juridical power, disciplinary power, and governmentality. Foucault suggests in a famous passage, moreover, that the old discourse of sovereignty acquires a new and sinister usefulness in the modern era, because theories of sovereign power may be obscure and give legitimacy to domination that takes place through disciplinary means. So, moreover, that the old discourse of sovereignty acquires a new and sinister usefulness in the modern era. Moreover, that the old discourse of sovereignty acquires a new and sinister usefulness in the modern era, because theories of sovereign power may obscure and give legitimacy to domination that takes place through disciplinary means. So he's saying, let me read that again. Moreover, that the old discourse of sovereignty, so the old discourse of patriotism, right? That the old discourse of patriotism acquires a new and sinister usefulness in the modern era, because theories of patriotism or sovereign power may obscure and give legitimacy to domination that takes place through disciplinary means. Let's look at the word sovereignty. Let me type that up. Sovereignty, supreme power or authority. So, okay, so sovereignty is about jurisdiction. It's not about patriotism. So sovereignty, right. So, moreover, that the old discourse of All right, let's look at the word sovereign. Let's not sovereignty. Let's just look at the word sovereign. 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 So sovereign, a supreme ruler, especially a monarch. The emperor, for example, the emperor became the first Japanese sovereign to visit Britain. So it's a power position. So let's read that. Moreover, that the old discourse of power acquires a new and sinister usefulness in the modern era, because theories of sovereign power, that kind of power, may obscure and give legitimacy to domination that takes place through disciplinary means. In a nutshell, they're doing what they want. From a Foucaultian perspective, legal populists might be understood as resisting both governmentality and the discipline of experts, and seeking instead the restoration of sovereignty. And they've put sovereignty with a big S and a small s. Very funny. That's like a small joke, a slightly small inside joke. Their creativity in reimagining citizenship as sovereign citizenship is reminiscent of Kirsty McClure's ruminations about the meaning of rights talk in the work of the 18th and 19th century political theorists Malthus, Owen, and Hazlitt. So McClure's concern is whether any political space exists outside Foucault's triangle, or whether resistance to one form of power necessarily means the strengthening of the others. She argues that these theorists use the language of rights, but in ways that do not necessarily reinforce the triangle. They offer critiques of disciplinary and governmental power that do not simply reinscribe sovereignty. Like Malthus, Owen, and Hazlitt, legal populists exhibit a thorough going skepticism about both discipline and governmentality. But the sovereignty they yearn for in its stead is not only a permanent instrument of criticism of the monarchy, but also a critique of sovereign theory as Foucault saw it. The theory that permitted a system of right to be superimposed upon the mechanisms of discipline in such a way to conceal its actual procedures. The element of domination inherent in its techniques, and to guarantee to everyone by virtue of the sovereignty of the state the exercise of his sovereign rights. Instead, as McClure suggests, the legal populists attempt to be subjects of rights that are before the law in an equivocal sense. Equivocal, let me look that word up. Open to more than one interpretation, ambiguous, equivocal. So the legal populists attempt to be subjects of rights that are before the law in an ambiguous sense, variously within and without the discourse of sovereignty. At once indebted and excessive to the forms of subjectivity and self-assertion made licit by legal guarantee. So instead, as McClure suggests, the legal populists attempt to be subjects of rights that are before the law in an equivocal sense, variously within and without the discourse of sovereignty, at once indebted and excessive to the forms of subjectivity and self-assertion made illicit by legal guarantee. In their attempt to rewrite what it means to be a subject before the law, their attempt to radically recenter the authority of law not only in the word, in their attempt to rewrite what it means to be a subject before the law. So, in their attempt to rewrite what it means to be a subject before the law, their attempt to radically recenter the authority of law not only in the word, but in the Protestant body of the people that interprets it. Their sovereignty does not resemble Foucault's sovereignty at all, for the legal populists have returned to the well of so instead, as McClure suggests, the legal populists attempt to be subjects of rights that are before the law in an equivocal sense, variously within and without the discourse of sovereignty, at once debated and excessive to the forms of subject. So let's look at that word, equivocal. Equivocal means open to more than one interpretation or ambiguous. So in an equivocal sense, variously within and without the discourse of sovereignty, at once indebted and excessive to the forms of subjectivity and self-assertion made illicit by legal guarantee. In their attempt to rewrite what it means to be a subject before the law, their attempt to radically recenter the authority of law not only in the word but in the Protestant body of the people that interprets it, their sovereignty does not resemble Foucault's sovereignty at all, for the legal populists have returned to the well of American revolutionary theory, identifying true law with the will of sovereign people and seeking to reconstitute that people as protection against the nightmare of bureaucratic domination represented for many by social security cards, driver's licenses, and above all the Internal Revenue Service, the agency of governmentality. In the place of modern disciplinary power, they assert their own power, typically based in Protestant Christianity, to recreate and regulate family and social relations and construct the self. Towards the end of his book, Mitchell poignantly locates the way in which contemporary consumer capitalism is able to bring even survivalism into its warm embrace. Mitchell visits a preparedness expo held at the Seattle Center, at which all manner of vendors are hawking various preposterous. Let's look at that word. Preposterous. Sorry, preposterous. Oh, that just means outlandish. So, the Seattle Center, at which all manner of vendors are hawking various preposterous wares, with the same implied message. Buy this, buy that, get rich, go free, stay young. Mitchell argues that this spectacle is the beginning wedge of the incorporation of survivalism into its antithesis, what he describes as Planet Microsoft. Planet Microsoft offers culture as a commercialized package experience, something you buy in order to express your identity. Microsoft might say lifestyle. And you're seeing that together, working together, Microsoft, Facebook, all of these social media sites working in one body, in one accord, And now with Facebook, with this meta system, and Facebook buying out WhatsApp, Facebook buying out Instagram or Snapchat, all of these being interlinked, so that it's a conglomerate, it's a monopoly. It's a monopoly really of your mind. It's not so much a monopoly of the company, because if you've got interests if you've got interests in WhatsApp, then really it's a monopoly of your mind. And when I say you've got interests in WhatsApp, I'm not saying that you're interested in WhatsApp per se, or that you've got stocks in WhatsApp. I'm just saying that you've got contacts on WhatsApp that who you communicate with. When Facebook buys out WhatsApp, which they have done, it's really a monopoly of your mind. It's not a monopoly of the actual company called WhatsApp. When Facebook buys out Instagram, which they have done, it's really a monopoly of your mind. When you've got Instagram and you use it and you've got followers and what the rest of it, it's a monopoly of your mind and your spirit, your soul. It's not a monopoly of Instagram, the company located in Delaware, whatever, whatever. So this is a monopoly. So yeah, this is a good explanation of it. Planet Microsoft, they call it. So Planet Microsoft offers culture as a commercialized package experience, something you buy in order to express your identity. Your identity. What is Meta all about? Facebook Meta. Facebook Meta is you create an avatar. You go into this world. You put on VR glasses. Just the other week, a woman complained that she had been raped on Facebook's Meta service, and that the guys were chasing her, and they were like, they said to her, "Don't act like you don't love it." And this became a big article. This had comment. There was videos on this. There was comments with people saying that those people are horrible and they should be banned from Meta and from society. And it got many thumbs up. It got many thumbs up. So this is where it's leading to this whole VR universe where you create an avatar which isn't really you, and you live out your life, and the things which happen in that universe pertain to actually you, your actual soul. Actually, this woman felt violated. She actually felt like she had been raped, even though it was just her avatar. I mean, she could have just taken off the VR goggles or whatever it was, or she could have just turned off the computer. But no, this turned into a big article, and this is where we're heading. This whole Siberia, this Microsoft planet, this merging of the people, and you'll find that a lot of I mean, just look at graphene oxide in these inoculations which they've been giving people. These inoculations contain a variety of ingredients, from aborted fetuses to the man-made virus HIV to um, uh, graphene oxide. When you have graphene oxide, you can lay. They've done experiments where you just lay this powdered graphene oxide on a table, lay it flat on the table. So you've laid this graphene oxide on the table. Take a magnet, put it underneath the table, and you can see that when you move the magnet around, it's moving the graphene oxide around as well. So if you've taken something which attracts metal, it's attracted to metal, and we live in a concrete and metal jungle. You're surrounded by metal. The thought is that when these 5G towers go, I mean, this is just theory, but when these 5G towers, you can turn the concentration of the power which it emits. You can control it. You can turn it up, and you can turn it down. that regardless, even if that wasn't the case, that graphene oxide is going to be hitting the surface of your skin, and whether that causes severe itching or severe rashes, or we don't know. But one thing's for sure is that graphene oxide doesn't belong in a human body. There's a real talk now, even when we talk about the Revelation scripture with the mark, that is a merging of technology. That is a merging of technology. And when you speak to some of these people, why did you get that? They say, oh, it's just more convenient, and I can open doors. And there's a lot of this I can open doors talk, I can open doors. And the more you look into it, the more you look at interviews of these Swedish people talking about opening doors, you can see that there's a real lust for opening portals. This opening doors is just convecture. Is that the word? Let me see if that's the right word. Convecture. I don't think it's convecture. Yeah, well, it is slightly convecture because it says an opinion or conclusion formed on the basis of incomplete information. So what they're doing is they're alluding to, they don't know, even if they know, they might know, and some of them might not know, that when they are talking about opening doors, they're really talking about their lust for opening portals, for opening other avenues, for downloading information which ultimately would have taken them years to comprehend, but having something where it downloads faster. This is their lust. It's their lust for, when they say opening doors, they don't literally mean opening doors, although this is what it actually is. They're just opening doors which they could have just opened with their hand. Ultimately, they're talking about their lust to open other doors which are locked to them. Because, the Most High has blocked certain aspects of our mind. Because remember, the Garden of Eden, they're getting, let me get that where it says, Genesis 3 and 22. And the Most High Yahweh said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. So this is the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, and being seduced by philosophies. There was no tree or apple tree or snake. This was a man that came to Eve and seduced her with certain philosophies, and beguiled her, and she was attracted to that, and it turned her to disobey the Most High and what to do and what not to do. But this is what Esau has always had that in him. He didn't need any. Esau was the man that came to Eve in spirit. So Esau has already had that way about him, of a lust for information, a lust for opening portals, which with locked doors, a lust for the forbidden. So this is what you're hearing with this whole Planet Microsoft, Siberia. It's all about opening locked doors, and they're locked for a reason. The Most High knows the spirit of man. They're locked for a reason. So Esau can claim to, go to the moon and go to space. This is not true. This is not true. Esau hasn't been to out of space, or he's gone to. He's been to Leo. He's been to Leo. Malcolm, the brother Malcolm from Chicago brought this out, that that Esau has been to Leo. They call it lower Earth orbit. Lower Earth orbit. So yeah, you've been to Leo, but to the outer space and so-called Mars and all of this. No, no, you haven't at all. Possibly satellites, but even then, um, there's limitations to that. But in terms of actual people, in terms of actual matter, like physical human, people, living people, no. Uh, but yeah, there's a real lust for the unknown, a lust to go down into the depths of the ocean, which humans will never be able to go, because the depths of the oceans go deep, and what is there is also unknown, and it's meant to be like that. Um, and you can see why it's meant to be like that, because even just here on Earth, within a few thousand kilometers, you know, Esau was blessed with the sword, and even when he sees people that just are different complexion to him, let alone what the other populations might look like, even if it's just a wavering of complexion and uh, a different being, a different way about them, then that causes war. But really, it's not so much about the difference in people. It's more about the resources, and it's more about subjection. It's more about wanting to put people under the thumb. It's more about wanting to have power over people. So it's really a lust of power. It's not. It's not so much, you know, because Mexicans eat beans and rice, and Edomites eat chips, that there's war. It's more so to do with the resources and subjection, and really just the spirit that the Lord has put on him. So let's go back to this. With respect to legal populism, the problems are not only the. So let's go back for individuals to experience. So let's go back a bit to this Microsoft stuff actually. So it offers survivalism, he argues, is the most sympathetic account of means of resistance to Planet Microsoft. It offers a world of impending, near-apocalyptic troubles in which survival is hard for for individuals to experience the exhilaration of making, not buying, their culture from the ground. So it offers a world of impending apocalyptic troubles in which survival is hard in order for individuals to experience the exhilaration of making, not buying, their culture from the ground up, creating everything from the sources of portable water to constitutional history. With respect to legal populism, the problems are not only the recuperative powers of consumer capitalism, but also the forms of expertise that Foucault identified as central to discipline and the state's ability to count, classify, and ultimately exercise surveillance over its citizens in the name of the public good. The flaws in legal populism are accordingly not only in vulnerability to Planet Microsoft, but also its romantic assumption that the mere assertion of sovereignty can magically make one invulnerable in the previous to Foucault's triangle, and its nostalgic assumption that once upon a time all citizens really did have the same power as the King of England. So let's leave it there. And on the next reading, that will be the conclusion of the book. There's only about 13 pages left. So on the next reading, I'll conclude the reading of the book. But yeah, the book is highly interesting. It's a foreshadowing of the times that we're. Well, it's not so much a foreshadowing, but it's permeant, or permeant. Let's look at that word. Is it permeant, or how do you spell it? Permeant. Or pertinent. Yeah. So it's pertinent to the times that we're living in now. Pertinent means relevant or applicable to a particular matter. Yeah, apposite. So the book is pertinent to what we're experiencing now in this world. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to finish the reading on the next one. Kal Halal Yahal Bashim Yahal Shai Bashim Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to all the Akim, the elders, and the bishop, pushing the gospel out in truth and sincerity again. I say that. So for now, I'll leave that now. Shalom.